And we heard from the chat. Chiptune Chronicles said that's one ugly arcade cabinet. Yes, I agree. All right, moving on to our next game. We are on our home computer, the Commodore PET. This is Dungeon of Death. Now, we do know that there's one game called Dungeon that came out in the Commodore PET. It was so fun. It's a roguelike game. I'm curious to see if this is like that. Dungeon of Death for your Commodore PET. Here is the artwork, and it kind of shows you that a lot of these home computer games are programmed by one person. They make up their own flyer or artwork. Was this used for a company? It looks like Instant Software helped publish this one. And then there's our advertisement flyer for this game for Commodore PET. Get fireworks from your pet. Wow, that's trying to sell the home computer. That's selling it hard. And there's some examples of the games you could get. Dungeon of Death, battle evil demons, cast magic spells, and accumulate great wealth as you search for the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail? That's what Dungeon of Death's about? You'll have to descend into the Dungeon of Death and grope through the suffocating darkness. If you survive, glory and treasure are yours. For the PET, only 8 kilobytes. There we go, look at that. To order this, it was only $8, at least on this advertisement flyer. But they said magic spells, that's just Satan's work. 1979, that's going to influence children's minds. Here is our cartridge, which is a cassette tape, and there's an example of the screenshot. Very early role-playing game. We've only seen a handful on the channel. Here we go. This is 1979. We're playing Dungeon of Death on our Commodore PET. Okay, so it boots up right away. Now, full disclosure, the Commodore PET has different models. It's possible we are not playing the game booted with the correct model. So if it crashes, we can try a different model and then go from there. And I really hope it runs faster. A lot of the home computers we've seen are not super quick. All right, here we go. So the name, let's pick someone from chat. Chiptune is my name. There we go. Chiptune the man. I didn't put the man in. It just added that. I guess it's randomly picking our class and character. And you can see over here on the left, they're giving stats. Very first video game that we've seen stats like this. We have seen video games that have given experience points, gold, and we've seen roguelike games, but this is the very first video game we've seen on the channel that is including stats from, you guessed it, Dungeons and Dragons. This might be our very first, well, we've seen games that were inspired by Dungeons and Dragons, but didn't really use the mechanics of it. And this is it. It's using strength, agility, wisdom, experience level, gold, magic, your power, all that stuff. All right, so we heard from chat. Chiptune says he is a man, so it works. Okay, that's great. All right, so it looks like are we now playing the game? Is this the level? So can I move? I can't. Oh, it moves slow. Oh, man. Okay, so if you look in our viewport of the game is that small box. And I am the circle. So I'm using the keyboard because there's no controller. And when you want to move, I just moved up. I'm waiting. I pushed up and nothing's happening. Will it let me go? Oh, so someone attacked me, and it says that I won the attack. So there's some pluses that are around the O, and it's asking which way I want to go. So yeah, I'm moving up, and you can see they're moving on the viewport, but it's so tiny. Look how small the viewport is to play. You got to imagine it's like a top-down view. So as I'm moving around the dungeon, I'm picking up gold, but the pluses are enemies that are attacking me. Yeah, you can see it's every time that I move, they rearrange and move their places. And then now the monster has come up to me, and it's asking me what do I want to do. So the monster options are fight, evade, magic spell, or run. And if you run, you always drop gold. So we're a fighter. We're fighting. Them are fighting words. And it says, we won. Chiptune the man. Won. And from the chat, Chiptune Chronicles says, yes, he's too spoiled to play today's dungeon crawlers. And he couldn't play this. And I agree. To go back in time and have that mindset of playing a dungeon crawler, that this is one of the first ones to ever exist, you have to really have the patience and want to be engaged in this kind of game. But this is kind of stretching it. I'd say the dungeon game, just straight dungeon that we played, was better earlier this year. than Dungeon of Death. So we're going to go and give that one slightly below, so 2.5 stars for what you could play at home, just because of the speed. The idea is there, the delivery isn't really there. So 2.5 for Dungeon of Death. And from the chat, we heard from Pretty117, run from this game. Well, see, the nerds would be running to the game. Everyone else would be running away from Dungeon of Death. That's a good point. Why would you want to go to the Dungeon of Death? To get gold? Oh, here we go. This one is a big one. This is called Dunjonquest, and you're not reading that incorrectly. There's no typo. They spelled it incorrectly for marketing, to jazz it up a little bit, so people would be like, hey, that's spelled wrong, and then they'd want to get the game. But this is Dungeon of Quest, Temple of Apshai. They consider this to be one of the very first games, video games, to take all the elements from Dungeons and Dragons and put them in a video game. This is it. And now we're playing on our TRS-80, which is the other home computer, which means we got to do some typing on our keyboard. So here's the artwork for Dunjonquest, Temple of Apshai. You can see that we have a story mode, and the advertising, they're saying it's graphics, computer-generated map, and it uses high resolution and color. Looks like this is the back of the Apple II and not the TRS-80. Because the one we're going to play is on the TRS-80. But it's the first in their Dunjonquest series. It's a role-playing game that catapults you into a world of magic and monsters. Doomed cities and damsels in distress. More than a game, it's an alter ego experience. They're really hitting on the whole Dungeons and Dragons vibe. And so there's a screenshot for you of what it looks like. And if that's the case, this will be the best looking role-playing game we've ever seen on the channel. So here's the advertisement flyer. This is from Automated Simulations, and it shows some of the other games they released about the time, which is Temple of Apshai, Morlock's Tower, and then Hellfire Warrior. Oh my gosh, they're writing the children's brains. It's the work of Satan, I tell you, Satan. This is, I guess, is this how to play? Oh yeah, it's a smaller advertisement flyer. Take your favorite character or let the computer create one for you. Let the book of lore guide you through a dungeon quest within the temple. Oh yeah, lots of story, heavy on lore. We will not be reading the whole thing, that's for sure. And we just heard from the chat, Chiptune Chronicle says he remembers the whole Satan thing back in the day. And yeah, this is where it begins. Those darned video games. Yeah, here it is. This is the point of the game is the Vault of the Dead. You're supposed to go to the Temple of Apshai and get to the Vault of the Dead. And it has 200 rooms, 30 monsters, 70 treasures. Yeah, they're really selling that one. This one was played on a cassette tape. There you can see for our TRS-80. Whoa, it uses 16K. I don't have the money for that. Who's going to pay for 16K of RAM on their computer? Wait a second. Is that the same screenshot? Maybe the screenshot we saw was for the Apple II, because this is the TRS-80 version of it. All right, let's see what the manual has. Here it is. Is this the manual for the TRS-80 or the Apple II? The Temple of Apshai. And if you can see on the right, there's no page, but look at the scroller. This thing is a book because it's a very lengthy role-playing game. Yeah, it's showing you how to use the book. Oh, this is it. This is the book of lore to play Dunjonquest, the Temple of Apshai. And it says, suggests you read through the introduction, how to play before you begin play. Introduction will introduce you to role-playing or fantasy role-playing games if you aren't familiar with them. Nobody's familiar with them unless they played Dungeons and Dragons. You'll probably want to read through this section quickly and refer to your first game. Don't be intimidated by its length. I already am intimidated by its length. The Adventures of Brian Hammerhand is a fun way of introducing you to our fantasy world. So everyone is now joining me to be the uber nerd. If you wanted to be in 1979 and really sit there and play a few hours on your home computer, this is the game. Extremely influential. And if you've already started playing, you can refer to the Chambers of Dungeons section. And oh my gosh, so yeah, they have the introduction. They're giving you the lore of the game to really get you hooked on it, and it explains what role-playing games are. If all your answers are yes, you're a player of role-playing games, or you ought to be. If your answer is no, you've either stepped through the looking glass by mistake, or fate knows your destiny better than you do. Role-playing games, RPGs, allow a chance to step inside a world grown too prosaic for magic and monsters, doomed cities, and damsels in distress, and enter instead a universe in which only quick wits, the strength of your sword, arm, and strangely carved talisman around your neck may be the only thing separating you from a pharaoh's treasure or the mandibles of a giant mantis. Written very well. And games at the time for home computer, when you open the box up, they would have things inside that we commonly refer to as feelies. So they'd have like an actual map made of cloth, or a talisman, a piece of a metal talisman, or a coin, something that you can actually touch and feel to pretend like you're in the world of the role-playing game you're playing. All right, so that is extremely long for the manual. Let's boot up our computer and see what it's like. It is 1979. We are playing Temple of Apshai for the TRS-80. Okay, here we go. So we first need to see what's on our disk. So we type dir. I told you we'd be typing. It is 1979 on a home computer. So if we want to play Temple of Apshai, I have to guess which one it is. It looks like it's the Apshai one, I'm going to say. So if I type Apshai, does it load? Come on, load. Oh, no, it doesn't load that way. All right, we'll try it this way. We'll load basic. And then we load run Apshai JPL. Does it load? No, it does not load. So that means we will not be able to play Temple of Apshai for the TRS-80, but we will see this game released on several other home computers, and we will play that. So the very first version is a little trickier to get to boot up, and we kind of expected that for home computers at the time. However, for what this game is and how far it's gone, we're going to give this one a score of 4. If we spent more time on this, actually read the lore book, then we'd be able to dive in deep and play a role-playing game from 1979, the most in-depth one you could play. And that is our time for this evening. That was a blast. We are now in 1979 playing all the other games that were released sometime during the year. We couldn't pinpoint when they are, and we'll continue and check those out next time. Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the channel and joining me on my quest to play every single video game in order of release. We'll be streaming live every weekday at 9 p.m. Central, so join us and let me know if there's any games that we missed on the way. You can always check me out on YouTube to see any old videos or any of the archival ones before the live stream. Just tell your friends that there's some crazy guy out there playing every single video game, or trying to, in chronological order. You can look me up on Twitter, on Instagram, and YouTube. Chronologically Gaming is the name to look for. We'll catch you next time.